Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh and welcome to the world of Dungeons and Dragons. In this series I'm exploring the lore and story behind the whole multiverse of the game, creatures and monsters, heroes and villains, or worlds and settings. We'll cover it one bit at a time. Today we're exploring one of D&D's most veteran and beloved creatures, none other than the Owlbear. In the worlds of the Forgotten Realms, scholars have long debated the origins of the Owlbear. The most common theory, a demented wizard created the first by crossing a giant owl with, surprise surprise, a bear. However, venerable elves claim to have known these creatures for thousands of years, and some Fae insist that owlbears have always existed in their home of the Feywild, a parallel plane to the Prime and a place of unusually potent magic. The owlbear's body is covered with thick, shaggy feathers, with pupils staring out furiously from its beaked owlish head. With a reputation for ferocity, stubbornness, aggression, and sheer ill temper, it's one of the most feared predators of the wild. There is little, if anything, that an owlbear fears when hungry. These creatures are often hungry. Even monsters that outmatch an owlbear in strength and size avoid tangling with it, for this creature cares nothing about a foe's superior strength, as it attacks often without provocation. Hunting from sunset to sunrise on average, owlbears are often found in mating pairs, hooting or screeching to declare their territory and flushing prey into their hunting grounds. When an owlbear successfully catches prey, it sometimes partially consumes it before leaving the rest near its lair to be stored. The scent of flesh often could attract more carnivorous prey and therefore more prey for the owlbear itself. Outside of the game world, the owlbear is one of Dungeons & Dragons' most beloved and veteran monsters. Owlbears have featured in every edition of D&D from the very first and beyond. D&D's creator, Gary Gygax, was playing a game he'd helped create back in the day, Chainmail, with the fantasy supplement, and he needed figures to suit his tabletop game. Rummaging through American dime stores, he fell upon a bag of cheap toys made in Hong Kong labelled as dinosaurs. And although whether these could even be called dinosaurs with their provenance slightly questionable, names and stats were given to some of these weird looking creatures, and one became the first owlbear. Other notable alumni of this cheap toy session, the famous Rust Monster and Boulette. So what of an owlbear in-game? Well, in D&D, an owlbear gets the best of both of its namesakes. With the keen sight of an owl and sensitive smell of a bear, owlbears get advantage in D&D 5e, the current 5th edition, on wisdom perception checks that rely on any sight or smell. The owlbear is also a multi-attacking creature, able to make 2 attacks, one with its beak and one with its claws. It weighs in at challenge rating 3, which means it could be a solo formidable threat to a low-level party starting out, and with multiple owlbears providing a stiffer challenge for a group that's found its feet. You'll mostly find them in low-level adventures, but they can be combined with other creatures to cause quite a challenge to some slightly more seasoned adventurers. So what of famous owlbears out in the world of D&D? Well, the most famous recently may well be Chippy of Acquisitions Incorporated, Penny Arcade's many year ongoing game. Chippy is spawned from an owlbear variant of a figurine of wondrous power from the rogue Viari. Often found and used by Patrick Rothfuss's chandelier-loving rogue, Chippy has come up clutch in many fights, but did have one particularly traumatic experience in Viari's iStar facility in the episode of the same name.
It says, Owlbear Recreation Training and Milking Facility.
What happens when you milk an owlbear? Well, maybe not a question we needed to know the answer to. Dice Camera Actions, the Waffle Crew, have had 2 owlbears grace their games at various points, initially Hootie McHootface, but when they were turned into jerky, their child Waffles is the current companion owlbear. If you want to see owlbears out and about in games, from Idle Champions of the Forgotten Realms right now to Neverwinter, where the owlbear is an epic rarity rideable mount, the owlbear has been a favourite of very often Dungeons & Dragons licensed games for many years, from the arcade beat-em-up Towers of Doom to the MMORPG D&D Online when it used to exist, Dungeons & Dragons Tactics on the PS, the gold box of AD&D games, Curse of the Azure Bonds, Forgotten Realms Unlimited Adventures and Neverwinter Nights, and even going back to the Sega Genesis with Warriors of the Eternal Sun in 1992 by a company called Westwood. Wherever there is Dungeons & Dragons, video games, podcasts, or even streams, there will certainly be owlbears when any party is starting out. So here's to the owlbear. And I'll leave you with a final question. If a monster, if a monstrosity is a cross between an owl and a bear, what kind of noise does it make? A hoot or a roar? Or something in between? Thanks very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this little lore and story summary of the Owlbear in D&D's world and universe, throw a like, subscribe, and let me know what monster world, city hero, villain, or more, or anything to do with D&D you'd love me to cover in a lore and story roundup. Do check my playlists here on the channel for more lore and story and world building from many different worlds, be it video games, tabletop, fictional worlds of all kinds, and much more. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Last but not least, thanks to my patrons on Patreon, without whom these videos would not exist. If you'd like to support what I make here and see more of it and get involved in helping shape and steer its creation, do check out patreon.com/Hammeh. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh. Take it easy.